Heavy machinery ripped through my backyard while I was away taking care of my sick daughter. The Pine Crest Homeowner Association had built a train track right through the middle of my family's three-generation farm without permission, ruining my best crops. But I discovered something that would turn their entire world upside down. Would you believe their fancy headquarters was actually sitting on my land? I inherited my grandfather's 50-acre farm when he died 5 years ago. This land sits on the outskirts of what used to be rural county territory, but has slowly been taken over by suburban development. The Pinecrest community sprang up around us over the last decade. All McMansions and perfectly trimmed lawns where cornfields used to be. When they established their homeowner association, they tried repeatedly to pressure me to join, claiming my ugly of a farm was bringing down their property values. I refused every time. This is working land that has been in my family since 1943. My grandfather built that red barn with his own hands after returning from World War II. He showed me everything I know about farming, and his legacy means more to me than any amount of money. The problem started: small complaints about my tractor being too loud in the mornings, warnings for my overgrown vegetable garden that they claimed broke some county ordinance, requests to paint my barn a more appropriate color than the traditional red. I ignored them all. I was not part of their homeowner association, and they had no authority over my property. Then Rebecca Winters became the new homeowner association president, a well-groomed executive in her late 30s with sleek business suits and a corporate background. She saw my farm as nothing but an obstacle to her vision of suburban perfection. During her campaign for homeowner association presidency, she explicitly promised to solve the farm problem and frequently brought her right-hand man, Richard Thompson, a retired corporate lawyer in his 60s, to do her dirty work. Thompson would come by with friendly suggestions about how much developers would pay for my land. He would leave brochures for retirement communities suggesting a man my age should not be working so hard. But this land is not just property to me. It is my heritage, my livelihood, and my home. No amount of harassment would make me sell. Last fall, I had to travel out of state for 3 weeks to help my daughter after she had surgery. Before leaving, I noticed measuring equipment near my property line, but thought nothing of it. The homeowner association was always doing landscaping projects on their side of the boundary. Big mistake. I returned to find a literal train track cutting through my eastern field, connecting the homeowner association's clubhouse to their newly built heritage center on the other side of my property. They had constructed a small tourist train that would carry residents and visitors between the two locations. Right across my land, the tracks cut through my best topsoil, where I had been growing sweet corn for the farmers market. They had taken nearly an acre of crops without permission and installed not just tracks, but fancy lighting, benches, and signage explaining the historic importance of Pinecrest's agricultural past. The irony would have been funny if it was not my livelihood they were destroying when I faced Winters at the homeowner association office. She smugly produced paperwork claiming they had legal easement rights based on an unclear county ordinance. She said they had sent proper notification, which I had supposedly ignored. The certified letter had supposedly been delivered while I was away. The train adds character to the neighborhood, she said, with a careless wave of her manicured hand. It will increase everyone's property values by at least 15%. You should be thanking us. When I mentioned they destroyed my crops, Thompson chimed in from the corner of the office. We will repay you for the market value of the corn. Cannot be more than a few hundred. He slid a check across the table that would not even cover my seed costs, let alone the lost revenue. I immediately called my lawyer, Sam, who confirmed what I feared. Their permits were based on fake documents. They altered old property maps and exploited my absence to rush the construction through. But unwinding this legally would take months, if not years, of expensive litigation. They are counting on you not having the resources to fight this, Sam explained. It is a common tactic with these aggressive homeowner associations. They know the legal system favors those with deep pockets. That night, I stood on my porch watching that ridiculous train making its first test run through my field, feeling utterly violated. The red and white cars gleamed in the sunset, as they rolled through what should have been my harvest. How many more battles would I have to fight just to keep what was rightfully mine? There had to be another way to fight back. That is when I started digging through my grandfather's old records, stored in metal filing cabinets in the barn. Grandpa was a careful man who kept documentation of every inch of our land. He had fought his own battles with developers back in the 70s and had learned the hard way to keep flawless records. I spent hours reviewing yellow deeds, survey maps from the 1940s, and letters with the county. In the back of a drawer, I found a folder labeled Northeast Corner Dispute, 1968. That caught my attention. Inside was a detailed surveyor's map with handwritten notes from my grandfather. As I studied it under the lamp at his old desk, I discovered something amazing. The small parcel of land where the Home Owner Association had built their main office, the very headquarters from which Winters waged her war against me, was not actually part of the original development tract. Due to a surveying mistake decades ago, that quarter-acre technically belonged to our farm. Grandpa had noticed the difference when the first development started, but had never pursued it since the land was just a wooded corner at that time. The documents showed that when my grandfather allowed an easement for county water lines in 1968, the surveyor had wrongly marked our property line. The next developments had used those incorrect markings, but the original deeds told a different story. I called Sam first thing in the morning and sent him scans of everything I had. Found he spent 3 days researching county records and comparing them with my grandfather's papers. I can hardly believe this, Sam said when he finally called back, excitement evident in his voice. But your grandfather's records check out through a strange legal oversight. When the development was first permitted, that land was never properly transferred. According to county records, that parcel still officially belongs to your family's farm. So I own their headquarters? I asked in shock, my mind racing with the consequences according to these records. Yes, he replied. They have been operating on your land for 7 years without knowing it. The Homeowner Association built their office there in 2018, but they never did a proper title search, going all the way back to the original farm boundaries. Can we prove it clearly? I asked, not wanting to get my hopes up. Yes, but we need to file for a corrected survey with the county and formally establish your ownership. That will take some paperwork and filing fees, and we will need to keep it quiet until everything's official. An idea began to form, one that would either end this conflict once and for all or make it beyond repair. Either way, I was tired of being pushed around, Sam, I said, feeling a surge of determination. Let's keep this between us for now. I need time to plan this carefully. As I hung up the phone, I looked out my window at the train, making another test run through my field. Instead of anger, I felt something new. The calm confidence of having finally found leverage. That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about what my grandfather would do in this situation. He was not a spiteful man, but he believed strongly in justice and community. The Homeowner Association had shown no regard for either. They had crushed over my rights, destroyed my crops, and treated me like an inconvenience, to be eliminated by morning. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. It would be a risk, but sometimes you have to bet everything to protect what matters most. If this worked, it would not just solve my train problem, it might actually create something good out of this whole disaster. The next morning, I was inspecting the damage to my eastern field when I saw Winters walking toward me in her tailored navy business suit, flanked by Thompson. The red and white train cars were parked on the tracks behind them like a bright wound across my property. Mr. Miller, she called out, her heels sinking lightly into the soft dirt of my field. We need to discuss the landscaping requirements around the tracks. These crops are too close to our attraction. We will need at least a 20 feet buffer zone on each side. I stood my ground, wearing my grandfather's faded overalls, the same ones he had worn tending this land for decades. The contrast between us could not have been more obvious. Her designer suit against my work clothes, her corporate demeanor against my farmer's reality. This is private property, he said, feeling my jaw tighten. You had no right to build anything here in the first place. Thompson stepped forward, his face tense. We have all the Necessary permits. This train line is happening whether you like it or not. Those permits were falsified, I countered. My lawyer has already confirmed it. Winter's smile weakened for just a moment before she regained her composure. Prove it, farmer. Take us to court if you want. We have the resources to drag this out for years. Do you? She gestured dramatically at the train behind her. This is progress, Mr. Miller. Pinecrest is evolving into a top community. Your quaint little farm is holding back everyone's property values. Why fight the inevitable? Thompson chuckled. Maybe you should sell while you still can, before we find more clever ways to make use of the surrounding land. As they turned to leave, Winters called over her shoulder, we will be running 6 trains daily starting next week. I would move those crops if I were you. Oh, and do something about that tractor noise in the mornings. Some residents have complained. I watched them walk away back toward their headquarters completely unaware they were standing on my land. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the confrontation, proof of their trespassing that would come in handy later. Enjoy your little victory while it lasts, I muttered, already setting my plan in motion. I needed to move carefully. Sam helped me quietly file the proper paperwork to formally establish my ownership of the office parcel. We kept it completely under wraps, paying extra filing fees to speed up the process. This kind of title correction usually takes months, Sam warned me, but I have called in some connections with the county clerk's office. They will fast-track it for us. While the paperwork was processing, I visited the Veterans Rebuilding America office downtown. It is a charity I had supported for years. They provide housing assistance and job training to homeless veterans. My grandfather had been dedicated to supporting fellow veterans, and I had continued his tradition of donating part of our harvest each year. Maria Jenkins, their director, was surprised when I asked for a private meeting. I have a rather unusual offer, explained once we were in her office. I told her the whole story. The homeowner association's harassment, the train tracks, and my discovery about the office property. If I were to donate a building to your organization, could you put it to good use? I asked. Maria's eyes grew. Absolutely. We have been looking for a new administrative space for months. Our lease is up soon, and commercial rents downtown have skyrocketed. She leaned forward. But are you sure about this? It seems like you could sell that land for a large sum. I am not interested in the money, I replied. I want to honor my grandfather's legacy and actually do some good for the community. The real community. Not just property values. With Maria on board, I next contacted Jeff, a locksmith friend who had helped me with the farm security. After a series of robberies years ago, he agreed to be available on short notice once my paperwork cleared. The final piece was to review the homeowner association's own rules, which Winters had brandished against me countless times. I requested a copy from a supportive neighbor and spent an evening poring over the dents legally buried in Section 12. Paragraph 7 was exactly what I needed. The association must conduct all official business from its designated headquarters, as registered with the county. Another clause specified that board meetings could only be held in alternative places during temporary emergencies not exceeding 14 days. Every night that week I would stand on my porch watching that train run through my field, using my anger to power my resolve. Each passing day brought me closer to turning the tables. I ordered a large custom banner to be printed and arranged for a photographer from the local paper to be accidentally passing by at the right moment when Sam called to confirm the paperwork had been processed. I felt the first real sense of victory I had had in months. It is official, he said. You are the rightful owner of that parcel. I have emailed the final documentation, and the hard copies are being delivered tomorrow morning. I called Maria and Jeff, setting our plan for Saturday morning when I knew the homeowner association would be conducting its monthly property inspections. Are you absolutely sure about this? Sam asked one final time. Once we do this, there is no going back. I thought about my grandfather, about the 3 generations of my family who had worked this land, and about the pride with which the homeowner association had dismissed it all. I have never been more confident of anything, I replied. On Saturday morning I arrived at the homeowner association office at 6 o'clock am, before anyone else would be around with my paperwork in hand and the sheriff's deputy I had arranged to be present as a witness. I met Jeff, who quickly changed all the locks on the building. "You are sure about the legality of this?" the deputy asked, reviewing my documentation one more time. "Yes, sir," I replied. "This building is on my property, and I am using my rights as the legal owner." We posted the legal ownership documents and notice of donation on every door. By 8 a.m., the Veterans Rebuilding America volunteers had arrived and we put up large signs reading "Future Home of Veterans Rebuilding America" on the building, along with American flags and the charity's logo. Maria arrived with a dozen volunteers, all veterans in the organization's shirts, who began taking measurements and discussing repair plans right on the front lawn. Some carried clipboards, others brought coffee and donuts, creating a festive atmosphere of purpose and community. By 9 a.m., when Winters typically arrived to start her weekend homeowner association inspection rounds, a small crowd of curious neighbors had gathered. The local newspaper had gotten wind of the generous donation to veterans and sent not just a photographer, but a reporter as well. Winters' face when she pulled up in her expensive SUV was a study in disbelief. She sat still behind the wheel for a moment, staring at the changed building with her mouth slightly open. Then she stormed toward the entrance, only to find her key would not work. When she spotted me standing with Maria and the veterans, she charged over like a storm, her designer heels clicking furiously against the pavement. "What the hell do you think you are doing? This is homeowner association property," she shouted, her perfectly maintained composure breaking. I calmly handed her the certified documentation. "Actually, Rebecca, this parcel has always belonged to my family. Check the surveys. I have simply decided to donate it to a deserving cause." The sheriff's deputy stepped forward. "Ma'am, I have reviewed the paperwork. It appears to be in order." As the color faded from her face, I could not help adding, "Perhaps next time you will think twice before building a train track across someone else's property." Winter's face went from pale to red as she frantically paged through the documents. "This is unbelievable. There must be some mistake." Thompson arrived minutes later, hurrying over to examine the paperwork himself. "This cannot be legal. We will sue you into ruin," he threatened. But I could see the worry in his eyes as he recognized the county seal on the document. "You are welcome to try," I replied. "But while you are at it, you might want to address the fake permits for that train track cutting through my property. I am sure the county commissioner would be very interested to learn how those were approved." The gathering neighbors began to whisper. Many were seeing Winter's tactics exposed for the first time, and they had questions of their own. One neighbor, Ellen, who had always been sympathetic to my situation, stepped forward. "Is that true, Rebecca? You falsified permits for the train?" Winter stammered, trying to maintain control. "It was for the good of the community. Property values cost us a fortune in homeowner association fees," interrupted another resident named Dave. "That train project doubled our monthly payments." "And for what?" asked another homeowner. "A tourist attraction. None of us asked for." The reporter was capturing everything, asking Winters direct questions about both the train permit and how the homeowner association had failed to verify property boundaries before building their headquarters. "No comment," Winters kept repeating, but her face told a different story. Thompson pulled Winters aside, muttering urgently as the situation spiraled out of their control. She kept glancing at me with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Meanwhile, Maria was introducing the veterans to the neighbors, explaining their purpose and how the building would help them expand their services. The mood among the residents was shifting from confusion to interest and even support. "We will be offering job training programs," Maria explained to the gathering crowd, "and our veteran support groups will be meeting here weekly." "My son served in Afghanistan," one neighbor mentioned. "Is this program open to all veterans?" "Absolutely," Maria replied. "We are here to help every veteran in need." By afternoon, Winters had called an emergency home owner association meeting at a member's house since they no longer had an office. I was not invited, of course, but Ellen texted me updates. "Total disaster." Her first message read half the Board is considering resigning. The next update was even more shocking. They are checking financials now. Apparently Winters spent homeowner association reserve funds on that train without full board approval. The local evening news ran the story of the farmer versus homeowner association battle, complete with footage of the veterans gratefully receiving their new building. The report included tough questions about the homeowner association's practices and highlighted how the train project had been pushed through without proper permits. That night, my phone rang constantly with calls from neighbors I had barely spoken to before. Some apologized for not standing up to the homeowner association sooner. Others had questions about the veterans' charity. A few even offered to help restore my damaged field. The online comment section of the news story filled with supporters congratulating me on my stand against homeowner association overreach. About time someone stood up to these tiny dictators. Read one comment: God bless our veterans. Read another: by Sunday morning, an emergency petition was circulating among Pinecrest residents calling for Winters' removal and a complete audit of the homeowner association's finances. Thompson was nowhere to be seen, having apparently decided to distance himself from the growing controversy. As I walked my property line that evening, neighbors smiled or called out greetings, something that had rarely happened before. The train sat idle on its tracks, no test run scheduled, as the homeowner association scrambled to address the problem. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe easily on my own land. 3 days later, I received a call from Ellen, who introduced herself as the homeowner association's newly appointed interim president. The board voted to fire Winters last night, she explained. We have reviewed everything and, well, we owe you an apology, Mr. Miller. What the previous administration did was unforgivable. I let the words sink in, enjoying the moment. I appreciate that, Ellen. We would like to meet with you. She continued to discuss a way forward that works for everyone. She proposed a deal. The homeowner association would immediately dismantle the train track and restore my property to its original condition, covering all expenses. In return, they asked if the veterans organization would consider leasing a portion of the building back to the homeowner association for important meetings. We are not asking for much space, Ellen explained. Just enough for our monthly board meetings and a small office for documents. I discussed it with Maria, who saw an advantage. We could use them as tenants to help fund our programs, she pointed out, and maybe get some of those residents involved as volunteers. Veterans need community connections as much as they need services. When we met with the new homeowner association board at Ellen's home, are at my conditions. First, a formal recognition that my farm would never be subject to homeowner association rules. Second, a binding agreement that the natural boundary between my property and Pinecrest would be designated as a heritage agricultural zone that could not be developed or taken over. And third, the homeowner association would match every dollar of rent they paid with an equal donation to Veterans Rebuilding America. Ellen looked at her fellow board members, who nodded in approval. Those terms are agreed, she said, extending her hand. We want to be good neighbors, Mr. Miller. That is what a homeowner association should be about. Building community, not tearing it apart. The agreement was drawn up by Sam and signed the following week. Within days, workers arrived to begin removing the train tracks from my field. The homeowner association not only restored the damaged soil, but also compensated me for the lost crops at fair market value. This time, the veterans moved into their new headquarters by the end of the month, with the homeowner association occupying a small conference room and office at the back of the building. Maria reported that several Pinecrest residents had already joined as volunteers. As spring arrived, something unexpected happened. Several Pinecrest residents came to me about starting a community garden on the border between our properties. Ellen suggested we could involve the veterans in the project as part of their recovery program. Many of our vets find gardening calming, Maria explained, and it would give them a chance to develop skills they could use for work. We broke ground on the garden in April. To my surprise, 20 neighbors showed up with shovels and seedlings ready to work. Some brought food to give, Others brought children eager to learn about growing vegetables. By summer, the garden was growing with a mixture of flowers and vegetables, tended by a combination of veterans and residents. My grandfather's farm is thriving again. The eastern field, now restored, produces more crops than it has in years. Each harvest, I set aside a portion for the veterans' food pantry, continuing a tradition my grandfather would have supported. I occasionally spot Winters driving slowly past the property, staring at the Veterans Rebuilding America sign on what used to be her office. I heard she moved to a condo downtown. No homeowner association. Thompson resigned from the board entirely, apparently concerned about potential legal repercussions of his role in the falsified permits. Last I heard, he was facing questions from the State Bar Association about his actions. The train, parts of it were donated to the local children's museum, where it has been converted as an interactive exhibit about agriculture and transportation. Ironically, it is now educating children about farming, something the Homeowner Association had tried to erase from the community's heritage. Sometimes standing your ground is not just about protecting what is yours. It is about reminding people what community really means. It is not about property values or perfect appearances. It is about trust, honesty, and looking out for each other. The new Homeowner Association board has taken that lesson to heart. They have revised their rules to require greater transparency and homeowner input on major projects. Monthly dues have been reduced to reasonable levels, and the focus has shifted to actual community needs rather than unnecessary improvements. Last week, Ellen asked if I would consider serving as an advisory member on their Community Relations Committee. We need your insight, she said, to make sure we never lose sight of what matters again. I agreed on the condition that our meetings include cookies from my grandmother's recipe. Some traditions are worth keeping as. For me, I sleep better knowing my grandfather's legacy continues stronger than ever. His farm has not just survived, it has become the heart of a real community. The fence between my property and Pinecrest still remains, but the gates now swing open both ways. Sometimes fighting back does not just save your land, it creates something better in its place. And that is a reward worth waiting for.